Before we actually start the video, new bookshelf alert! I love them so much. I'm gonna pop some photos on the screen now to just show them off. While most people this time of year are commemorating it being the lockdown anniversary, for me it's very different. March 2020 was the month that I started playing Dungeons & Dragons. It was days before New Zealand went into COVID lockdowns that I played my first ever one-shot. That was 5 years ago, and I haven't stopped playing since. It's kind of baffling that I've kept it up for so long and have only finished one campaign entirely. A lot of them get abandoned, but like, it is rare for me to have a hobby last that long. The only other two that have lasted that long for me have been performing arts and my writing. I was going to use this milestone to make a video about everything that I had learned playing Dungeons & Dragons, but I already made that. Plus it feels like everybody literally covers that. Then I thought I'd make a video about all the characters that I've played over the years, but there are literally 20 or more. Not only does it feel like too much, but it makes this video way too long. And I know that 5 years isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things when 5th edition has been out for over twice as long as that. And veterans who played earlier editions obviously played for many years more. I am barely a private within this dice rolling army. It's safe to say that I'm addicted. It has taken over my life, for better or worse. I think what makes my Dungeons & Dragons addiction worse is how all the different hobbies that I have outside of Dungeons & Dragons have found ways to like interlace with them, making it like the perfect mega hobby for me. It fits too many of my interests into one, which are the following. Fantasy. The mechanics of the game are literally for fantasy-based role-playing in any kind of setting you can think of, from your classic fantasy to horror and even Magic Academy. Don't believe me? Just check out the adventures that Wizards of the Coast have published. Writing. D&D is a collaborative storytelling experience that takes place in real time. Performing. You get to step into the shoes of characters that you have made yourself, at times going through the challenge of having to make the decision that your character does instead of what you would do. Sewing. There was a phase in my life where I cosplayed my D&D characters, thus why I'm wearing and I own elf ears. And now I show my love of D&D through my clothing types a little bit more subtly. So that's why I got addicted, but where did this addiction actually begin? Like many people who began playing Dungeons & Dragons in the late 2010s onward, I've discovered Dungeons & Dragons through live plays. Recordings or live streams of actual people playing actual Dungeons & Dragons games in sometimes homebrewed worlds that the Dungeon Master created themselves, and other times actual adventures. And it was when a voice actor that I followed, not from Critical Role even though that's a stereotype, advertised that she was playing in a Dungeons & Dragons live game that I decided to check it out and see what it was actually about. When she was plugging it, I realized that it wasn't just the complicated board game that I had seen in other shows. It was storytelling, it was acting, bringing characters to life and creating stories. But as I watched these shows even today, I realized the deepest irony. Many of my friends are furious that I haven't watched the movies and the TV shows they keep recommending to me. I have not yet touched Arcane Season 2. None of the anime that I've been recommended in the last 5 years I have watched. And there's a long list of movies that I haven't watched, which makes me look like the biggest uncultured swine. Yet, I was able to watch all of Critical Role Campaign 2 in 1 year and 3 months, thanks to the lockdowns. And I have also seen now a good 70% of Dimension 20 shows and have finished other various D&D seasons from different platforms, which is way more of a commitment than a single season of TV. Nowadays you could probably watch an entire season of TV in 5 to 6 hours. But I have the ability to watch single episodes of Dungeons & Dragons sessions that exceed 4 hours per day. And I don't feel guilty about it. I mean, come on, there's worse things to watch than a D&D show, like Love Island. This is very obviously a hyperfixation of mine that I have, and honestly, shows how committed I can be if I'm actually into you. But maybe too committed. by the time I actually started playing Dungeons & Dragons. When I first started playing D&D, I found myself within about 6 months playing 4 different games a week. I mean, yes, lockdowns were probably a factor into me joining so many games at that time, but this is the most obvious hyperfixation and addiction in the world. Today, there is just one game that I am able to play regularly, fortnightly on Saturdays. And let me tell you, when I don't get to play that session fortnightly, D&D no longer stands for Dungeons & Dragons. It stands for depression and dullness. What else am I supposed to do on a Saturday afternoon that doesn't fill my storytelling and my social needs in one? How am I going to cope with waiting another 2 weeks for a cliffhanger to be resolved? On those days, I don't want to bed rot for the rest of the day, but there's nothing else that I can do from the sinking feeling in my stomach that the thing I have grown so passionate about cannot happen. Sometimes when I get too many cancelled sessions in a row, which is 2 in a row, I straight up weep. A whole month without playing and wondering if there's actually a romantic relationship happening between my wizard and another character's barbarian is not gonna come to fruition anytime soon. There are very few reasons I would cancel D&D and very few reasons that I wouldn't show up. The 2 main ones being work and the different performing arts shows that I get involved in. Otherwise, I literally have to make people make their plans around me, sitting in front of a monitor for 4 hours with Roll20 on the screen, pretending to be a tiefling. To an outsider, that must look pretty weird. And pretty odd knowing that the stereotype is that you can't get your D&D players to actually meet and make schedules. That's the complete opposite. My life has to work around my Dungeons & Dragons. Nerd! It's difficult to get me to do anything else when the opportunity of rolling dice arises. I'm just glad that people, at least to my face, respect my Dungeons & Dragons needs. I don't know what they say about me behind my back though, but that's okay, because I have friends that I can blindly put my faith in once I know that they play Dungeons & Dragons. It's baffling how instantly I'm able to connect with another D&D player. It's baffling, yet it makes sense that I can instantly connect with someone once I know that they play D&D, because we have gone through similar experiences. You can learn so much about somebody once you hear that they play D&D, such as the following. They're a fantasy lover. In my case, it gives us something mutual to talk about and to expand upon, including the different shows that we watch, potentially books that they read if they're a reader, and of course, what their campaign is. If you need to gift them something for any kind of birthday or Christmas, you just get them a set of dice. It could not be simpler. Thank you to everybody who has ever gifted me shiny math rocks. But it tells you something very deep about their character too. It tells you that they are cooperative team players. It tells you that they have the ability to put themselves in other people's shoes and show empathy. They are intrinsically bound and believing in the concept of found families. They can show strengths, vulnerabilities, and can explore facets of themselves without even knowing it, and are open to doing so. Honestly, if I ever get on a dating app, I'm probably gonna swipe right at anyone masculine presenting who plays D&D, which may be to my detriment. Because of course there are exceptions. There can be some pricks with big main character energy, the negative kind of main character energy. Or there are people that will cross boundaries just because their morally grey character would do it and make the other characters very uncomfortable. A D&D player doesn't mean they're a good person, and it has the potential to blindside me. This game has furthermore changed how I see people. I have verbally, with other D&D friends, used terms from the game to describe real life people. This is more than just taking characters from a show or a book and trying to work out what D&D classes they would be. No. I'm talking about average humans that I meet in real life. I can tell when someone has a charisma, a wisdom, or an intelligence-based build. I constantly compare myself to a rogue based on how many times I accidentally scare people in my day-to-day life. Like, not even trying. That's got to be a stealth expertise right there. Hell, 3 videos ago, I literally said I rolled a natural 1 on life. I feel like I've rolled a nat 1 on life. Sometimes I wonder how cringy it is that my brain has been wired up in such a way. I have this lens on life and these different thoughts, and sometimes those thoughts flip out. Would the average person even know what I'm talking about? I don't know. I'm literally in such a D&D echo chamber that I don't know how many people actually play or not in the entire world. Especially someone feminine presenting. Like, I remember when I started a new job and I mentioned that I played Dungeons and Dragons, everyone there who was female said that their boyfriend played. But also because I'm in such a D&D saturated world that I genuinely don't know what people outside the sphere think of Dungeons and Dragons. How accurate is it to the actual thing? Do they still think it's just what they see in Stranger Things? Well, at least I'm not playing it at the time when people are calling it satanic practices. Thank you to the veterans who stuck it out this whole time to make it such a cultural phenomenon. You made me get to where I am today, surrounded by all the portraits of my D&D characters that I can't stop drawing, slowly burying myself in handmade resin dice, and I hope that my fellow D&D addicts can watch this video and find reassurance in the fact that you are not alone. You are part of the party. And because we cannot give up this addiction, there's going to be more Dungeons and Dragons themed videos coming in the near future, along with other fantasy stuff if your interests happen to overlap, which it should. So be sure to subscribe for when those videos come into fruition, and ring that bell so you can find out when I post them. And with that, my fellow plane shifters and teleportation circle users, I shall see you in another world.